Hi everybody and welcome to the very first episode of Noisy Talks. My name is Simon Wu and I will have the pleasure of hosting this brand new video podcast where my guests and I are going to discuss all things video production, filmmaking and everything that goes with it. So we're gonna be talking about all the aspects of the video production, but not only the creative side of it, the technical side of it, but we're also going to be talking about its importance and its strategic value if it comes to marketing, branding, and storytelling. And I'm super excited about this one because I wanted to do it for a very, very long time. And I'm even more excited to welcome Joey George as my first guest. Hi, Joey, how are you?
Very well. Great.
Very well. That's really good to have you here. Joey is a visual artist, filmmaker, director, photographer, painter, and the list could go on, but also he's my very good friend. And I'm really happy to kick off this new series with Joey. Thank you for accepting my invitation.
Very welcome.
So today we are going to talk about approaching creative process in the filmmaking, so how you deal with that and everything, but also we are going to talk about something that we call the blank canvas syndrome or the creative block, which we are sometimes struggling with, unfortunately. But before we dive into this, I wanted to ask you and talk with you about how it all started with you and the video making. But even before that, I wanted to ask you one simple or maybe not simple question, because I said so many things about you. How would you describe yourself in the first place if someone approached you on the street and called you like, oh, okay, so what do you do?
It's a great question. It's a little bit contextual, I think, depending on who's asking. But I think you know what it's like being creative. We tend to take interest in many different things, music and visual art and drawing and painting and writing, and they all kind of exist up and talk to one another. So I usually talk about what I am doing as a project, and particularly what I'm doing at the time. But right now I'm writing and directing films, but working in visual arts.
Yeah. So let's focus on films and the video for a while, and how it all started with you. When was the first time you actually took the camera and was like, oh, okay, video and filmmaking is something that I really want to do?
Yeah. I think it started with skateboarding for me when I was a teenager, and growing up in the 90s and watching skateboarding videos on VHS. And I switched primary school into a new high school, and my new group of friends were into skateboarding, and I kind of just adopted that and started skating and gravitated towards the videos, and was always buying the skateboarding videos from the store. And then I took a photography class and learned film, and we used to wind up these film canisters before we'd go out on the weekend and just shoot all these photos of skateboarding.
So that was the first time you started like photography and film, and it was all on actual film?
Yeah, it was all black and white film that we would then come back to the lab at school and hand develop in the tubs. And I think just seeing that process of the thing that you love doing coming to life in a dark room was pretty exciting.
Yeah.
And then sort of transitioned into video from photography.
Okay, and so can you remember your first video project that you did? Was it something that you did for yourself, just for trying, or was it like a client's gig?
I think it was a sponsor tape video for a friend who was a skateboarder. A sponsor tape being like trying to approach a skate shop to be part of their team and get free boards, and because we were always breaking skateboards and putting holes in our shoes, so we felt like if we can get sponsored, then we don't have to pay for all this stuff. So I became kind of like the filmmaker of the school group, and yeah, just fell in love with making videos, and then editing them on Pinnacle Studio was like the first editing software that we used, and it was super basic.
So it was no Da Vinci, huh?
No Da Vinci.
Yeah, that's cool. So what do you think it was that attracted you to making videos and photos? And we'll get to that a little later, but I think it's really hard to ask all those questions to you without actually having painting, photography, and videography all together, because I'm sure they're influencing each other in your life. But if we could take video under the microscope for just a second, what do you think is so attractive about it that you want to do it?
I think filmmaking for me incorporated so many other mediums within art, and it sort of just came into my life like at that really young age, that age 15, when you're very absorbent to like certain music and that kind of stimulus, and it kind of just it got me, and I didn't really know why. I didn't really think about anything else. I wasn't thinking like, am I a painter or a photographer? I was kind of just swept up in it, and I loved all the different stages of it, and the planning, and then the shooting, and then the editing, and they all had these different, I felt like there was all different parts of me that I could slot into and do. And it just didn't, it didn't seem like I could exhaust it, you know? And I didn't really know, like that's how I think about it now, but at the age I was kind of more just swept up in it. And
yeah. And when was the first time you did video commercially for a client?
So I grew up in a country town, was making these skateboarding videos, and then finished high school, but knew that I kind of wanted to go into some kind of media or visual arts, but had no idea how to go about that. And so I went to film school in Perth, in a city. It was a couple of hours from where I grew up. And I think like when I was studying, I would have taken little jobs like for small businesses and doing interviews and things like that. But I can't remember the first
time. Yeah.
Yeah. I was doing events. I was filming people's birthday parties, and I went to film school, and I lived with a guy who was a DJ, and so he would DJ and I would film the events. That was the first sort of income.
That's actually interesting, because you started with events, but it was like quite some time ago. My journey is not so long, but my first like gig was also events, and do some like, you know, DJing parties and techno stuff and everything. So what is your creative process like? Could you give us a little bit of sneak peek? How do you do that? How you start? How do you like maintain your, you know, creative momentum in the middle of it? I remember that you told me that you're trying to write as much as you can on a regular basis, but if you could give us a glance of how do you approach that?
I usually start with, I've got a document that's just full of ideas. Anytime I have an idea, I just throw something at it. So I feel like there's things that are always coming, like I saw this, or I had this idea, and I'm always just keeping a log. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of putting myself in a position where I'm receiving and always wanting to fill that document or that page in my journal, whatever it is that I have. And then I think it's just always grown from there. I love to journal in the morning. I love to like kind of just get my thoughts out. What are the things that I keep thinking about and the problems that I keep having? And then I try to turn them into an idea or a story.
Are you handwriting or is it digital?
Handwriting.
Yeah.
That's old school.
That's old school, but that's also really great. And I think we we remember more if we are handwriting in a journal or whatever, just a piece of paper. I just started practicing that myself as well for many different things. And obviously at some point, these days, especially if you're working with someone else, you have to transfer all that into digital and give it some form. But yeah, there is something magical in handwriting. So is it like, how do you take it from this ideation and everything to actually producing your ideas, like, you know, breathing life in them?
I think I just keep going after something until it starts to take shape, you know, like it's not gonna, very often will something like just fall into shape straight away. So, you know, I'll write a scene here, or I'll write a character and maybe think about the ending and what does it sound like, or what do I see? I like working to a lot of music as well. Helps me see ideas.
Is this because I reckon that at the beginning it's pretty chaotic, that whole process, your ideas and everything. You just start writing and let it grow to a form or something. Is it scary sometimes?
Yeah, it's confronting. I think when you are trying to bring up ideas, sometimes you go into, you know, we go into ourselves and our past and our own story. Because that's what I think. I can really only come up with ideas and stories from myself. I can't tell someone else's story very well. So I kind of think I'm best when I stick in my lane and write from what I've experienced, and not try to be something or someone that I'm not. And so I think doing that helps. It kind of gives some boundary to what I'm doing. Taking note of things that have happened for me in my past, and things that have taken my interest, and why do I find these sorts of films interesting, and why do I listen to this kind of music, and trying to just pull it all up and create something that is only unique to me. And sort of I think that's what makes creatives unique, is that we all bring something special, like from our own stuff that we pull together in a special way.
Yeah, and that's what you just described. I think that's what is something really different to doing a client's work, right? Because when you're creating something on your own and that's purely your idea and you have to work on that, that's a completely different world, and it's different to still coming up with ideas and being creative and everything, but for someone else to tell someone else's story, that's totally different thing. I'm asking if it's scary sometimes, because that's actually the topic that we wanted to talk about today, which is the blank canvas syndrome. Why do you think with us creative it's so common?
I think there's often other stuff that needs to be taken care of. When something isn't flowing, you know, sometimes it can just mean you need to have a break, or you need to go and go deeper into the research. You know, there's always more you can read, there's always more you can watch and listen to. So fill up your tank, if yours is empty, with things that you like. You know, go back and watch the films that you watched when you were 15, but it is daunting. I think, do you mean like it's daunting to show your work and then other people are going to see it, or you actually have nothing to say?
Well, it's both, because I think it can happen on so many levels. If let's say you're working on your own project, or I'm writing a new song, and it's just like it isn't there at the moment. It can be pretty frustrating, or even scary, because you want to keep going, you want to push things forward, but there is nothing really happening in your head. That is one thing, but it doesn't always have that fear, that creative block. It doesn't always have about the writing and the creative part per se. Like, I sometimes even struggle with it when I'm planning the production, because it's like it's an empty page. It's a blank page, and you have to put all those elements together. And it's not that it's hard to get through it. Actually, it's about this mechanism that is happening in your head that gives you the final output that you have to deliver or you want to get as a creative, versus all those small pieces that you can take step by step. And I'm glad that you mentioned it, that there is always more you can read, there is always more you can get inspired by, because like I also wanted to talk about the solution and the recipe for how to deal with that, because obviously it can influence you in a different way. It can influence someone else. You are pretty calm, and that's how I see you. And I think you have this like common sense. And okay, if I can push through it, I can like take a step back. Whereas I'm struggling with it. Okay, sometimes I don't want to take a step back. I just want to push through it. And so, but at the end of the day, it's all about like being aware of that, how the creative process works. And it's not something that is there all the time. And we just have to work on that constantly. So this is actually the next question that I wanted to ask you. What are the strategies, what are the things, rituals that you are using to overcome that? And there is many, like a research that is like, it works for me a lot. Another one that works for me a lot is just like breaking down the big picture into smaller elements, because that just gives me an idea of, okay, today I just need to do this and that. And when you break it down to small pieces, it's not so scary anymore. But I think what we could talk about is how collaborating with other people actually helps with that one. Because you've already mentioned that this is the aspect that you like about filmmaking, and you like going out there. And I remember you said many times that you feel most alive when you're on set with other people. So yeah, let's talk about that. How do you see collaboration with other people, how it makes your creative process better?
I like collaborating because you invite people into your process and you identify where you have gaps and where you have blind spots, as we all do. And I think a lot of people who work and create art or whatever, they like to have full creative control over what they do. And that's sort of just not really realistic. You have to be able to invite others in, and you have to be kind of hold your ideas a little bit looser. And I think I'm at a point where I have an idea and it's really just another idea. And then I invite other people in and they can chop and change it a bit and grow it, you know. Working with others, you need to be able to articulate your idea as best as you can to the ability that you know how. So you need to have done some, you know, self-reflection. And for me, I kind of like to do the Socratic method to myself and ask why. Well, I want to make this film about this old lady. Well, why do you want to do that? Well, because this old lady had a special, or why do you want to do that? And you can really burrow down into sort of the reason why you want to go and spend all your time and energy doing this project. And then once you figure that as much out, you can then sort of reverse it and articulate it to these other people that you want to bring in. And then they know why it is that you want to do it and why you're the right person to do. And then you start building a team, and then people can chime in with all that information. But then on the flip side of that, sometimes it's good just to give your script to someone who's not related at all. Yeah. So like email it to your mom and see what she thinks, or get a 10-year-old kid to read it and see what they think.
I think it's important to use different people and to be in touch with different people so they can really have different perspectives. So do you like working with people that you already know and can rely on, or do you like constantly looking for new people and meeting new people on sets? And which is more convenient, which works better for you, or you like to mix it up?
I like to mix it up. I like to be challenged and stretched a bit. But the reality is everyone is so busy now, and we all seem to have like multiple projects going at the same time. So out of necessity, we kind of have different people in different pies at the same time. I mean, I'm sure there are people who have the luxury of just coming out of their house whenever they want to make one thing, and then they choose the people that they want to work with. But for the rest of us, we're not really at that point. So we're kind of have got maybe some corporate job here and some creative job here, and using different people.
Is it more important to you to work with people who see your vision and then they kind of like share it, they're jumping on board and want to sail with you, or that's less important, you would rather look for people who are great at what they do and they'll just do their best job to bring your vision to life?
I think people who are passionate and enthusiastic speaks a lot, for sure. I think a lot of the technicalities of filmmaking you can learn pretty quickly, and sometimes they're actually a hindrance to things. And so having someone who just really loves what they're doing or really loves what you're bringing is going to help get it across the line and keep things moving forward. But then there are specific things that you need someone who is really specialized in, you know, if you're shooting in a certain way, or someone who has experience with certain lighting setups and that kind of thing.
What do you think is the most important thing that has to happen on set in between people in order to get the most out of the day on the set?
You know, a movie set can be quite it's an intense space. There's a lot of intense emotions flying around. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of time constraints. So there's this, things can get pretty hot pretty quick. You know, working with actors and people performing and bringing that on screen.
Yeah, like we said, it's pretty complex, right?
It is complex. So I think a crew who has experience and they know what their role is and when they can chime in and how to chime in is, just people who are very respectful of the production, and but also a lot of it comes back to, you know, the director and the captain of the ship, and kind of keeping the morale and keeping everyone invested in this vision.
Yeah. If I could throw one more thing to all that, it would be trust, and actually believing that we're all there on the set for a reason, and we trust each other that we're going to do the best job. Because I absolutely understand that directing is like, you know, number one on set, and director is a person who needs to take care of everything at the same time. But on the other hand, it's also kind of impossible to do, you know, take care of the audio if you're directing and everything. So I think trust and trusting the people that you're working with is also good quality of a good director on set. What are the other rituals that you're implementing in your creative process, but on set? Because we already discussed that when you're writing, when you're working about your ideas, you're writing a lot and you're trying to keep the journal and your thoughts organized, etc. Is there anything specific that you're doing on set, or like the rule that you always stick to in order to make your collaboration with other people good?
I think just trying to be prepared as much as possible. You are in charge, but knowing your limits and being able to delegate responsibility to other people when you can't carry everything, and being okay with that. But preparation is a massive one, I think. You can never be over-prepared, in my view. And
having said that, how do you deal with and kind of like keep the balance between your creative vision and some practical constraints that might appear on the way. How do you try and address those, and how do you deal with that? Because like it goes without saying that there are always going to be some obstacles and constraints that will actually make you have you bend your vision a little bit or adjust to the practical situation that you're in.
Definitely. Yeah, you have to, I think, for me, when I'm planning a shoot day, it would be like I prioritize, priority of shots and priority of what I want to get. I want to get 4 shots, shot 5 and 6 if we have time, but not essential if we don't. And then what usually happens is you get those 4, but then along the way, an actor has an idea or has a flair that they add, and then so shot 2 becomes it exceeds expectations. So that's like a double tick. And then maybe shot 3 is like how you saw it and how it was supposed to be, and then shot 4 is the DP has a suggestion, and then you create time for that. So I think just having like what you would be okay with, you would go home and sleep comfortably.
Yeah.
And then being open to getting extra and allowing time for that.
Yeah, this is something that I'm trying to do as well when planning. Like, I want to have everything on the list that will make the production successful, and that will be like, okay, we did what we want to do, but I always like to spare that 15, maybe even 20% of everything that is planned, or plan for 20% more time to have on set to actually let the unknown and unexpected happen. Because sometimes that's where the best ideas come up with, and like we work together on some of the productions that were like this. If we didn't let them happen, sometimes there is like this voice in your head that forces you just stick to the plan, right? Because of the time pressure or whatever. But yeah, I think it's important to let that voice go away, and just work on those ideas that are happening on set whenever possible.
I think you want to eliminate as many things that you could have eliminated in pre-production. So having that list, and then not just having that list, but knowing how you could like jiggle them around if you needed to, or how could I attach shot 4 and 5 together so that it's one shot.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we just do a pan. It's like, well, I don't want to use pans in my film. Well, like in order to get shot 4 and 5, we're going to need to do a pan or something silly like that. And so you have to kind of be okay to give up and know how much of an issue is it? Is it going to destroy the whole film to have a pan or a zoom or a tilt or something just in order to get that shot in? And yeah, being okay with that. And I think it's better for the crew, particularly if you're doing a longer shoot, to kind of not feel like you got everything that you wanted, but the crew feels good because things are running on time and they're doing their job. And so you have to kind of kill a bit of yourself in order for them to...
Yeah, absolutely, because it really feels good to be satisfied with your work at the end of the day, but it feels even better when you know that not only the client, not only like someone you're working for is satisfied, but everything that you work with, because it doesn't necessarily has to be a client's gig. It can be your own project. And if you know that everybody enjoyed it and everybody's happy, that feels even better than just you being satisfied. We also talked a lot about how constantly trying to create something might actually drive you crazy at times. And I think we are the same in that matter, that we just, you can have mine, go for it. Because of that thinking, you never, ever actually feel like something that you're working on is done. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you think at some point that it's bad and could be better, but it can always be different. And sometimes it's kind of difficult to know when to stop, when to say, okay, the creative process should should be like on hold for a second because we need to move the whole production to the next phase or something like that. How do you deal with that?
People think about perfectionists in very different ways. Some people are perfectionists, and I think that's a good thing, but people deal with that in different ways. For me, I would say I'm a perfectionist in the sense that people talk about it, but I've had to learn to not, like, the issue with being a perfectionist is that you set your expectations on the end result, and you will always be disappointed if you set your expectations on the end result. Whereas if you think about your project as a journey, and a day and an hour and a half an hour, and you're constantly moving, then you're doing perfect as far as I can tell. But when you sit down and watch your film, you know, there's so many experiences and so many scenes and shots and moments. Not everything is gonna be perfect. So the fact that you are sitting watching your film on a screen on your couch is like an achievement. And I think thinking about life more like that in the present moment and the journey is where we find fulfillment, not in the final product, because the final product isn't really about us at that point. It's that I did it, and now some people are going to really take new meaning and inspiration from it, whereas I'm at the end of that. So
I think what you've just said is like the perfect strategy to implement when you're struggling with the blank canvas syndrome. Like, just for a while, forget about the end result and just like focus on that doing all those steps can be great despite what's going to be at the end of it. And I know how simple that can sound, but it is what it is. Like, embracing the journey and having fun with every single day on the set, with every single day when you came up with a single thing, like a character or whatever, or a line in the script. That's the whole point of doing it. Because as you said, the end result is only going to be that some other people will watch, some of them will like it, some of them won't. But if you believed in what you're doing all the way, that's a successful thing.
That's right. And just don't quit. Like, that's it. I think being a perfectionist in a good sense is just not giving up and embracing all the problems that will come. You know, some films are cancelled. Millions of dollars are put into a film that the studio would just say, no, just put it in the bin. Some films are reshot like 3 times. So it's like, what? People at that level are still making those seemingly major mistakes. It's like, things happen outside of your control for whatever reason, and you just like keep going with it.
Yeah, if you can think about internal and external factors, like if someone's going to like your film or not, it's totally external. It's like you have almost no influence on that, right? But like focusing on having fun, enjoying what you do, be as good as you can on a daily basis. That's what really matters, and that's what you can really influence.
But I think at the most basic level of the blank canvas thing, I mean, there's so much inspiration around now. It's almost like you just have to remind yourself to go and borrow or steal other work. You know, if you're a musician and you're trying to learn how to play a song, you start by learning covers. And getting a feel for the sort of music that you like and the stuff that you don't like and the chord progressions that you like. It's the same with anything. You kind of find your group and then just sort of keep doing the stuff that they've done. And that's the only way that you're going to find your own style is by tightening up.
So the bottom line is that the blank canvas syndrome is just an excuse these days. So guys, just get over yourself. And I'm speaking to myself here as well. I think that's actually a very good wrap up to everything that we wanted to discuss here. That it's just a fear, and it's nothing that it's real and happening there. It's just in our heads, and it's just what sometimes just like pulling us back. But we just have to get over it and do whatever feels comfortable at this moment to get over it. To wrap up everything, Joey, I just wanted to say like 3 things that would be an advice from yourself to the guys that are at the beginning of their journey and they just want to start and they sometimes struggle with those things that we talked about. What would be the 3 things to tell them?
I think if you're working creatively and you're thinking about creative things all the time, try to broaden the way that you look at your particular story or project. So if you're a writer, director, and you're writing characters and scenes, instead of thinking about words and putting words into the computer, you could think, just try and like sidestep and look at it from a different angle. Like, well, if this character was a sound, what would they sound like? Or what's the emotion that this character constantly has? Are they constantly angry? Well, how would I, how does anger sound in nature? How does it sound? Which instrument would I use for this character? And what color clothes would they wear? And try to just look at it from different things and then make a list of all that. And often I listen to an album of music and then I think that was incredible. Like, how would I make that, like what I got from that album, as a film? Or how would I turn it into a photo? If I had to put it on my wall as a painting.
Oh, that's a very interesting approach.
How would I do it? And it's really difficult, but I think it stretches you to think a little bit differently and pull on some of the other skills that you might have. That's one.
That's one.
I think reading and researching is a big one.
Yeah.
Get interested in stuff like that. Just learn about stuff and read. I think if you're in filmmaking, definitely get interested in philosophy and ideas and psychology, because you're dealing with people and relationships and how they are and how the world works and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, there should never be really there's no shortage of what you can pull from and learn and read. And number 3, gosh.
I honestly think there was already more than 3. Yeah, so that's great. Thank you so much, Joey, for being here. Thank you for accepting my invitation. Thank you guys for watching. I really hope that this is gonna become a regular and recurring series. So let me know what you think. Join us in the discussion about the blank canvas syndrome and how are you dealing with that. And I hope I'll be able to do more episodes, and I already have another one planned in February, so just stay tuned. Thank you so much for watching.
Peace.
Bye-bye.
Make good work.